What if the most powerful act of humanity was not doing more, but pausing together in silence? That's the vision Pablo Neruda offers in Keeping Quiet. Hello and welcome, curious minds, to the Eloquent Explorers. Today, we step into Pablo Neruda's reflective poem Keeping Quiet, where silence becomes not emptiness but renewal. Neruda urges us all to stop just for a moment, to set aside wars, greed, and endless activity, and rediscover the harmony we share with one another and with nature. The significance of this poem lies in its timeless relevance. For grade 12 students, it's about the themes of peace, unity, and self reflection. For PGT aspirants, it is an example of Neruda's humanistic voice, blending simple language with profound philosophical thought. The poem teaches us that sometimes pausing is the first step towards progress. Through this video today, we are going to cover about the author, setting of the poem, take an overview, discuss the main characters, and then we will discuss this poem in detail. After that, we will also be discussing the literary devices, then the significance of the title and the significance of the chapter. Next, we're going to work on its literary aspects, which include themes, tone, mood, style. After that, we are going to take a quick recap and summarize whatever we have learned. And finally, we are going to conclude this video with the message that the poet wants to share through this poem. So make sure you stick around till the end so that you do not miss any of these important points. Pablo Neruda is a name that rings a bell for almost everyone, especially people involved uh, in English literature, okay, the literary scholars. Now, Pablo Neruda lived between 1904 and 1973, and he comes under the modern poets and modern writers. Okay, he was born as Neftali Ricardo Reeds Basalto in Parral, which is in Chile, and he is celebrated as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. He wrote with deep passion and simplicity, using vivid and accessible images that made his poetry universal and timeless. Hence, why he is very famous among people who read poetry. Okay, now his works span themes of love, nature, politics, human struggle, and hope. So, in his works, we will generally see themes of love, themes of nature, themes of politics, human struggle, and hope. Okay, he was also the senator of Chile. So, of course, this politics part we get from there, and then love, nature, human struggle, and hope. Okay. In 1971, please remember and mark this point, write it down in your notes, that he was awarded in 1971 he was awarded Nobel Prize in Literature for his outstanding poetic achievements. Okay, 2 years before he passed away, in 1971, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for his outstanding poetic achievements. Neruda was not only a poet, but also a diplomat and a voice for the oppressed, often blending art with social and political consciousness. Keeping quiet reflects his belief in the power of silence and introspection to bring about peace, unity, mutual understanding among human beings. Okay, so now, as I told you, he was not only a poet, he was also a diplomat and he was a voice for the oppressed. He worked for the people who were oppressed, and he often blended art with social and political consciousness. So, hence, we see that in his works, we see themes of society, we see themes of politics, and political consciousness. Okay. Now, keeping quiet, the poem that we're going to read of his, it reflects this belief of his in the power of silence and introspection. Okay, how silence and how keeping quiet for a moment, slowing down for a moment, stopping everything for a moment, and then introspecting yourself, how that can bring about peace, unity, and mutual understanding. That is what has been was believed. That was what was believed by Neruda and has been shown in his poem. Okay, so this is what we're going to read in Keeping Quiet. Now, the setting of the poem is actually not a physical setting. Okay, we are not talking about a place that's real. It's actually a philosophical setting. Okay, in which the whole world is invited into a shared moment of silence and reflection. So it's a setting of in the mind. Okay, it's a philosophical setting that Neruda has created, where he requests everybody, every person in the world, to join in this moment, in a shared moment of silence. If he requests, he urges everybody to stop everything, to shut everything down for a moment, to stop talking, to stop moving, and then in that moment of silence reflect upon their selves, upon how they're living, on what they're doing, and how and what are the consequences of actions that people have been taking. So he's not talking about inactivity, but he's talking about taking a moment out of your busy lives so that you can reflect upon yourselves, you can reflect on your actions and their consequences and their results. All right. So that is about the setting. Now that the setting of this poem is clear, let's discuss the overview. Pablo Neruda's Keeping Quiet is a reflective poem that urges us to pause in our restless, busy lives and discover the power of silence. Instead of focusing on endless activity and competition, the poet suggests that a brief moment of stillness could bring harmony with ourselves, with one another, and with the natural world. It's not a total call for inactivity, but rather for mindful reflection, a moment where we step back from the chaos and connect with the deeper meaning of existence. The poem makes us ask, what might we learn about life, peace, and unity if we just stayed quiet for a little while? A point to ponder on. Now, we will discuss the main voice or the main character of this poem, which is the speaker itself. The speaker, or you can say the poet itself, is the main voice or the main character of this poem that narrates the poem and acts as a philosopher guide who is urging mankind to pause, introspect, and embrace peace. Through the poem, we will see that the poet, who's acting as a guide as well as a philosopher, is urging us, mankind, to take a moment, to take a break, to pause, and then to reflect into ourselves, to introspect, and finally embrace, finally enjoy the peace that we would get by pausing at that moment. Okay. So from here we begin with the poem, and we're going to read and we're going to understand, we're going to interpret the meaning of this poem paragraph wise. Okay, so I hope you have your books and your pencils in your hand so that you can underline any important point or note down any point that you feel is important for the poem and for you to remember. Now, let's begin with this poem. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So, in this first stanza, um, Neruda is giving instructions, okay, as to what he is expecting people to do. So here we see instructions that you have that he's urging people to count to 12. Okay, and then after that, everybody will stay. In those moments, we will all stay still. Okay, so he's urging people, he's instructing people to count to 12, and in those 12 seconds, he's urging them to stay still. Okay, now why 12? Before we move any further, why has he taken the number 12? Okay, he could have asked for 15 seconds, he could have asked for 30 seconds, 5 seconds, 2 seconds, but why 12? Okay, because 12 is symbolical. Okay, it is a symbol. It's a symbol for the 12 hours of the day, right? The 12 months of the year. So it's a symbol. Hence he has taken 12. He's asking you to count till 12. Alright. Now, for once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Now he's saying that for once, so he's urging everyone, for once on the face of earth, let's not speak any language. Okay, so it's asking everyone who speaks any language at all to stop speaking. Okay, who's on the face of the earth, who's living on the earth. That means anyone, any person, any human who's alive and can speak any language, he's requesting them to stop speaking. Okay, to stop for just 1 second and not even move our arms. He's requesting the people of the earth to not even move their arms. Okay, he wants everything to be very still. Nobody's speaking, nobody's fidgeting, nobody's using their arms. Okay, let's now see why is he asking people to do that? Why is he calling out people to count to 12, to stay still, to not speak at all, not even move their arms? Okay, let's see why. That will be explained from the next stanza. So I hope the instructions first are clear. So these are first instructions. That is, we need to count 12, and then and in those moments we need to stay still. After that, he's also urging people to not speak in any language. Just stop speaking. Okay, and also he's asking them to stop for only 1 second here and not move their arms, not move our arms so much. Okay, so he's just requesting everybody to come to a moment of peace, of stillness, of silence. Okay, now it would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in sudden spring. Okay, so why is he urging people to stay quiet, to stay still? We get to know here because he expects it to be an exotic moment. An exotic moment would be something that would be strange, yet it would be very attractive. Okay, so something strange and attractive is exotic. So he expects this moment, that moment in which everybody stops speaking and moving. It will be a very strange but very attractive, very peaceful moment because nobody would be rushing, there wouldn't be any engines, and everybody will be together in that in that sudden strangeness. Okay, just imagine when something happens. Okay, and let's take a small example. Um, in India, when during Corona, if you remember, everybody was asked to beat some utensils or ring some bells. Okay, at that moment during Corona, Prime Minister Modi had urged all Indians to come together and, for a few moments to beat their beat utensils or bring out the bells that we use in the temple, and we all were supposed to ring that for a few moments. Okay, now why was that done? Of course, he was using noise, and here it is completely complete silence. But why was that done? The motive of urging was quite similar. Okay, he wanted here our prime minister wanted all of us, all of Indians to come together. Okay, to show their unity, and he decided to do that by urging people to make noise. However, here we are doing just the opposite, but the motive is kind of similar. Okay, which is to unite everybody, to bring people together, to bring people, irrespective of their backgrounds, to bring them together. The second motive here that Neruda gives here is because he expects peace. Okay, now when he desires peace, now how can you achieve peace? How can you attain peace when everybody's doing their own work and nobody's concerned about each other? Okay, so that is why he is calling upon the entire world. He's asking everybody, urging everybody to become still, to stop talking, okay, to stop working, to just for a moment, to just take a moment for themselves. Okay, and then because it would be an exotic moment, like that was an exotic moment, and everybody was enthusiastic to participate, and everybody would have come outside and they would have gone to their terraces and done what we were urged to do. So it was an exotic moment, and people gathered together, and we realized that we are all together. We are all one, and yes, we were fighting at that time during those hard times, but we were one. Okay, so this is something that was an exotic moment there, and everybody going quiet, going silent, going completely still for a few seconds is another exotic moment that Neruda is urging to achieve. Okay, and now in that moment, there would be no rush, nobody would be rushing to get from place A to place B. Okay, engines wouldn't be there, everything would be shut down, right? But we would all be together, every single person, irrespective of their background, would be a part of that sudden strangeness, of that sudden silence. Okay, I hope this much is clear. Next, what would be the result if everybody stopped for a while, and what would happen? Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. The man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Okay, so this is now the beginning of what would happen if everybody went still. Okay, why he wanted people to go still, we got to know. Now we're going to see what results could be there. All right. So first of all, fishermen that are in the cold sea, they would stop harming whales. So this is again a symbolism here, or kind of a metaphor here, that fishermen representing every person who's harming the animals, the wildlife, and the whales represent the wildlife and the earth. Okay, the nature. All right. The fishermen would, in the cold sea, when everybody goes still, they will not harm the whales, right? So here we'll see that if everything becomes still for a moment, people will stop harming nature. Instead, we will create a harmony with nature in those moments. Okay, in those moments, we will realize the importance of another life. All right. And then the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Now, here he's talking about people who are toiling, okay, people who are working very hard. They would get a moment to reflect on themselves, to see how much they have hurt themselves while toiling so hard. Okay, so these would be the two results here. After that, he talks about people who are involved in wars. Okay, those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. Okay, So now he's urging people to come together and create a brotherhood. Okay, to create a brotherhood. Now, what this simply means is that to stop all wars, to stop going against each other, to stop fighting with each other and harming uh, people and harming the nature around us instead, because wars are always either, whether it is green wars, whether it is wars with gas, whether it is war with fire, okay, whether you're throwing fire at each other or you're using gases or whatever ways you're using to indulge in wars, it does not give you, it's not victorious. Okay, wars have never been victorious. Yes, team A could win against team B, but look at the loss. Look at the loss of lives and of nature and of our economy when people in, or when countries, or when yeah, we all indulge in wars. Okay, when kingdoms indulge in wars, so there, it's not anything that is victorious because there are no survivors. Okay, there are people, when you are a part of war, people who are alive, they have to live with that trauma, and the ones who've passed away, they've lost their lives, right? So here, wars are never victorious. Okay, so it's kind of a victory with no survivors, he's saying. According to Neruda, wars are all victory with no survivors. Okay, so, but he's urging all of them to stop the wars, to wear clean clothes. Okay, here to put on clean clothes means that he's urging them to, forget everything and start afresh. Okay, be clean. All right, he's talking about a new beginning. All right, PEGI. Okay. What am I writing? Right. So he's urging people to create a new beginning, to start afresh, okay, and then walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing, okay, instead of attacking each other. He's urging people to come together, to create a brotherhood, to care for each other instead of fighting with them, and walk in the shade, walk in the peace, in the calmness, and do nothing. Do And he's urging them not to indulge in any wars, not to indulge in, fighting with each other. Instead, he's asking them to forget everything, to forget all the uh, whatever other people have done, just to forget everything that wrong that has happened. And from that moment, he's urging everyone to, you know create a new beginning, to start fresh, to start new, and change their ways, care for each other instead of fighting. Okay, walk with each other, talk to each other. All right, in the shade doing, actually not talk to each other, but he's urging them to walk with each other, walk about with their brothers, and do nothing, just be there in the moment for each other. Okay. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Okay, now this is very important, that he's not asking people to, become inactive. Okay, he is urging people to not be confused with total inactivity. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about life is what it is about. Okay, I want no truck with death. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Death. Okay. So, what he's saying is that he does not want total inactivity. He's not talking about dying. He's not talking about everything perishing. Okay. That's not what he's talking about, because life is what it is about. Life will happen. Okay, and he does not want to deal with death. He's not ready to, you know he's actually refusing to associate or deal with death. Okay, he's not going to tolerate death. So he's saying that I'm not talking. Neruda is saying that he's not talking about death. Okay, he's not talking about total inactivity, that we should completely stop everything. Okay, that's not what he's talking about. Instead, he's saying that if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, he's saying that it's not just about moving and, you know, waking up every day, doing the same monotonous things, following the same routine. If we were not so single-minded that we have to keep moving all the time, and we have to keep our lives moving, and for once, for a few moments, we could just stop. Okay, so here is actually urging for introspection. Okay, he's saying, he's asking for introspection. Okay, introspection is when you take a moment, you stop every activity and you reflect on your actions, and you reflect on your conscious and subconscious mind. You try to understand yourself, each other. Okay, so that's what he's urging here. He's not saying that he's asking for death. Okay, he's instead asking to take a moment to stop everything and to reflect on your actions, to reflect on your thinking. Okay, to just get to know yourself. Because for once, if you could do nothing, and this huge silence that would persist in those moments, okay, what would that huge silence do? It would interrupt the sadness. Because when you keep moving, when you're following that same monotonous routine, and when you're just doing the same thing over and over again like a cycle, and all you can think of is, oh, I have to move, oh, I have to move, oh, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, it kind of gives you a feeling of dissatisfaction. Because when you're doing something, you're thinking about the next activity. Okay, now that activity is completed, now you have to do the next activity, so it brings about some kind of dissatisfaction. So in order to deal with that dissatisfaction, because dissatisfaction then ultimately results to sadness. Okay, so in order to deal with that dissatisfaction, in order to deal with that sadness, and in order to overcome that sadness, he's urging people to stop for a moment, leave everything, stop talking, stop moving for a few seconds, just calm yourself down, just think about your own self, just think about, just introspect, get to know yourself. And that, in those moments, and even if it is for one moment, that might actually be helpful to deal with your sadness, to deal with the dissatisfaction, okay, of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Okay, so now when you take a moment, when you introspect, when you understand yourself, that will help you. Because this, when you keep moving, you do not get time to understand what you want, who you are. Okay, so he's urging people to stop and to think about yourself, and then that would be the beginning towards understanding yourself, and that would take away your sadness. Okay, and that would take away you threatening yourself with that death. Okay, because when you keep moving, you know that life is always going to keep moving, and then it will come to an end. Okay, so don't threaten yourself with death. Instead, take a moment, relax, calm yourself down, and start getting to know yourself. All right, now here he gives an example, okay, of how we can uh, stop all the activity for a moment and then renew ourselves. He takes the example of earth. Okay, perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Okay, now he's saying, he's giving us an example of our earth, how when winters come, okay, everything looks as if it is dead. Okay, nothing is moving, it's very cold, it's very chilly, and the trees have lost all their vigor, they've lost all their green leaves, they've lost all their flowers, and they're all, and the land looks barren. Okay, it's all covered with ice. So it seems as if everything has stopped, everything is dead. But is it? No, because when as time moves on and when spring comes, all the things that looked dead, they come alive. So through this example, we can understand that if we take a moment, if we stop all the activity for a moment, and if we, introspect, if we take that time to introspect ourselves, we, even though on the outside it would look like everything is dead, it wouldn't be. Because after that moment of calmness passes, you we will all be renewed. Okay. So here he talks about renewal, how silence, how not doing anything can actually lead to renewal. Like our earth, it may appear dead during the winter season. Okay, everything might look as if it has stopped, life has stopped. But as soon as that moment of inactivity passes, as soon as that moment of stillness passes, let's not call it as an inactivity, as soon as that moment of stillness passes, we see that it was all alive. It was just taking a moment to calm itself down, to know about itself, to deal with all its sadness and lack of understanding. And it is now, it has renewed, it has come alive with a new life. Okay, with new thinking, with new, uh, you can say, new vigor. Okay, new strength. Right. So that is what he explains to us through this example. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Okay. So he says here in his concluding lines that now he will count up to 12 and he requests other people to stay quiet while he takes his leave. Alright. So I hope the poem is clear to you. It was a very simple, very peaceful, very calming poem that just urges everyone to, embrace the stillness, to accept the stillness, and then through that, he urges people to explore their inner selves, to get to know their inner selves, and then to deal with the sadness that prevails because of endless activity. Okay, finally, in the second last stanza, he gives us an example of Earth, how Mother Earth during winters may seem dead, but as soon as spring comes, she shows renewal, telling us that that moment was a moment of reflection, a moment of introspection, and that even though it seemed like everything was dead, everything was actually renewing itself, bringing out new energy, gaining new energy through that moment of stillness, of silence. So I hope now the poem is clear to you. If you still have any doubts, feel free to ask in the comment section. And we will now discuss the literary devices in detail that have been used in the poem. The first literary device that we're going to begin with is alliteration. Now, I've already explained in the previous videos what alliteration is, and you can see the definition here as well. It's the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of nearby words. Okay, here the example is given sudden strangeness. Okay, in this uh, in this line, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Okay, so the sound, the repetition of the sound, the S sound is there. Hence, it's a clear example of alliteration. Now, your homework will be, if you want to call it homework, or just an exercise that when you go through this poem, make sure to note or you can just underline other examples of alliteration, because here I'm just giving you a few examples. But if you carefully look through the poem, you may find more. Okay. So go through this poem yourself and look for more examples and then write those down in the comments. Okay, for example, if you found of alliteration, then mention the line and then write down the literary device. Okay, and also write down what the literary device tells or why is it used. Okay, so this will help you understand the poem. This will give you a quick you can revise the poem because you will have to read it, you'll have to understand it, so it will also give you a deeper understanding of the poem. And simultaneously you will be able to understand the literary devices, you will be able to identify the literary devices on your own. So I really urge you people, I really want all of you people to do this exercise in each poem video, so that you can just prepare better. Okay, and it'll be a great practice. So in the comments, you're going to write down at least one example other than the one that I've given, at least one example of each literary device that has been used in this poem. So it'll be very helpful for you all. You can also do that in a notebook, okay, or in your book itself, and then maybe give a few examples, maybe one or two example of each literary device. All right. Now, okay, alliteration we are done with. Next is assonance. Now, assonance is quite similar to alliteration. The only difference is that it is the repetition of vowel sounds to create musicality. Now, vowel sounds, these need not be initial sound. Okay, they can be in the middle, somewhere in the in the words, somewhere in the middle. So that's why these are assonance, and it's again the sound. Okay, remember that. Like ow sound, rush sound, without again ow sound. So these long o and u sounds, they are repeating here. Okay, the vowel sounds have been repeated, and hence there is assonance. Next is repetition. Okay, words and phrases are repeated for emphasis. If you remember the previous poem, My Mother at 66, there was repetition as well in the last line where she said that all she did was smile, smile, and smile. But there also we discussed why it was used, because words and phrases, when they are repeated for emphasis, that is when repetition, the literary device, has been used. Okay, so example can be without rush, without engines, we would all be together. Okay, there are other examples of repetition in this poem, so I want you people to write it down. Okay, now why this is used? Because it creates a kind of meditative and rhythmic effect. Okay, like when you're repeating something like smile, smile, and smile, so you're emphasizing on that moment without rush, without engines. You're again emphasizing on that moment and also creating a kind of meditative and rhythmic effect. Okay, when you're repeating. All right. So these two will be your repetition example for repetition. Next, we have symbolism. First is counting to 12, okay, like which is a symbol of a short pause, meditation, harmony. I also told you that this is a symbol for 12 hours of our day, one part of the day, and 12 months. Okay, so these two symbols can also be these 12. The number 12 can also be used understood as a symbol for 12 hours and 12 months, telling us about time. Okay, about a year, about half a day. Now, fishermen are not harming whales. Fishermen not harming whales here symbolizes harmony with nature. Okay, so when fishermen stop for a while and they do not hunt the whales, they do not capture the whales, we we are getting the symbol for harmony with nature. Wars are symbol for of violence, greed, and destruction of humanity. Okay, it's very clear. All right. Next, we have metaphor. Metaphor, I hope you understand, is when you use something in place of something else to create a comparison. For example, Now here in metaphor, you have to remember you do not use the words like or as. Okay, metaphor is kind of like simile but different. For metaphor, for example, she is a lioness. Okay, she is a lioness. Now here she is not really a lioness. Okay, but we are talking about her bravery. So we are just comparing her bravery, her characteristic to that of a lioness. So lioness is the metaphor for bravery that she has. Okay. Now I hope metaphor is clear. Life and existence are compared to movement or noise, and silence is compared to peace and harmony. So here we see that what are the metaphors that have been used in this poem. First, we talk about movement and noise. So when Neruda talks about movement, he talks about noise. That is compared to life and existence. So movement and noise, they're both metaphors for life. Okay, they're both metaphors for existence, that something is existing, there is life, so there is movement. Okay, while silence is a symbol for peace and harmony. So when he urges people to get become silent for a while, he's talking about creating peace together. Okay, coming in harmony, coming together. Now exotic moment, this is also a symbol, sorry, this is also a metaphor. Silence is metaphorically described as something rare and precious. Okay, so that exotic moment where everybody gets becomes silent, that moment is also a metaphor to describe that silence is something so rare and something so precious. Okay, and when people become silent, they create an exotic moment. They create a moment of strangeness, of an outward worldly attractiveness. All right. So I hope metaphor is clear to you. Next, we have imagery. Vivid sensory descriptions appeal to imagination. For example, clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade. This conveys peace and brotherhood. Okay, so imagery is simply when you use words to create a beautiful, vivid picture. Okay, a very clear picture that appeals to senses. Okay, it can also appeal to other senses like smell, like taste. For example, the smell, the fragrance of rose. Okay, so when I talk about rose, you can picturize rose, and you can also, feel the smell of rose, feel the fragrance of rose. All right. So, vivid sensory descriptions that appeal to imagination have been used very widely. It has been used, and one example we can get here is of clean clothes. So, when you talk about clean clothes, generally you will picturize clothes that are white, okay, that are clean, that are kind of sparkly, okay, that are that have that smell of freshness, right? So that imagery of clean clothes is also making our senses uh, you know uh, work. Okay, our imagination is working that yes, people must have worn clean, fresh smelling clothes. Okay, and then walking with brothers in the shade. So you talk about shade, you feel that calmness, that cool. Okay, and that we get when we walk in the shade. So why shade? Because wars are wars can be very troubling. Wars are very troubling. They are painful like the heat. And when you stop wars, when you move towards peace, it feels like shade. Okay, so when people come together and walk in shade, that means they're walking in peace, and they're living in peace and creating a brotherhood. They're coming together. So all this imagery has been created, has been given in these in this poem. Next, we have personification. Very simple. Everybody knows this. Inanimate or abstract ideas are given human qualities. We all know. Last time also we discussed giving human qualities to non-human entities. For example, Earth can teach us. Now, can Earth actually teach us? Right? No, because Earth is not a human entity, and teaching is a quality of humans. Okay, but this sentence here, this line here, is telling us that Earth is performing an action that a human can perform. Okay, so we are giving quality of humans to something that is not human. So this is personification. Now, Earth is personified as a wise teacher. What else is personified as a wise teacher in a lot of fairy tales, in a lot of stories? What other creature has is generally personified as a wise teacher? Can anyone tell me? What other creature? Can you write it down in the comments and let's see who gets this right? Which other creature or what other creature is also personified as a wise teacher in a lot of fairy tales, fables, and stories? Next, we have contrast or juxtaposition. Here we see contrast between activity and stillness. Okay. For example, rushing of engines, rushing of people, war, destruction. That has been contrasted with quietness, with peace and unity. Okay, so activity has been juxtaposed. Juxtaposed means two opposite things kept together to show comparison. So activity and stillness have been put together, have been compared. There's a contrast you can see because he talks about activity and then he talks about stillness. Highlights the difference between the current human condition and the ideal state of harmony. Okay, so when in this poem, when activity has been put together with stillness, when we are comparing activity with stillness, here we can see a clear, a stark difference between the current condition of humans, how they're rushing, and there's wars, and there's destruction, and there is a lot of activity there, and a lot of disruption. And then when he talks about stillness, when he urges people to become still for a few moments, that is stark, that's a contrast to their condition. And then it tells us about how the ideal state of harmony would look like. Okay, so there is contrast or there is juxtaposition of activity and stillness in this poem. Next, we have enjambment. It's because it's when sentences and or ideas they continue from one line to another to the next without any pause to create flow and continuity. For example, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing. This is one single line. This is one single idea. Okay, and it has been divided into three lines to show that there is continuity of idea. There is flow and continuity of idea. Enjambment we saw in previous poem as well. The entire poem we saw is My Mother at 66. The entire poem is an example for enjambment because we see that one complete idea has been flown throughout the poem without any break, without any punctuations, without breaking the lines. So instead, the poet has divided the lines into divided the stanza, used one stanza and has divided the idea into multiple lines, but it is continuous, it is flowing. So that flow, that continuity is shown through enjambment. Next, and I think the last literary device is free verse, that there is no fixed rhyme scheme or metrical pattern, which we have seen. Okay, we do not get any rhyme scheme. There are different lengths of stanzas as well. So it's a free verse. Okay, there is no fixed structure. This freedom reflects the poet's theme of breaking away from mechanical life. Now, why this was done was because the poet wanted to show that life cannot be lived in monotony. Life cannot be lived as a machine. Okay. So you cannot keep doing the same things over and over again. Instead, sometimes you need to break free from that. Sometimes you need to change the pattern. Sometimes you need to stop following a pattern. Okay. So here, free verse is reflecting how poet wants people to break away from that mechanical life, from that life of doing the same thing over and over again without even thinking twice about what we are doing. Okay, therefore there is no fixed theme, and there is no metrical pattern. So the stanzas are also of different length. I hope the literary devices are clear to you, and I request you again to at least give one example each of all the literary devices that we have studied, other than the ones that were used in this poem, so that it will be a good revision for you, and you can also understand how many, you can also evaluate how many literary devices you've understood and were able to identify. Now, the significance of the title. Uh, Generally, questions are asked to signify the title, to uh, tell the examiner why the title was appropriate. Okay, so let's see the points. Let's discuss the points. First is that the title suggests a pause from constant activity. Okay, to keep quiet. This is showing that you must pause, take a pause from the activity that you've been doing. It's not about inactivity, but about introspection and harmony. So when you're quiet, you're not inactive. Okay, instead you are using your brain, you are using uh, your mind, to introspect. Okay, to think about your actions and to think about your um, to reflect. And then it also talks about harmony. Okay, when we all come together, we can all come together in harmony only. Now, finally, it symbolizes the power of silence to heal, unite, and transform humanity. Therefore, keeping quiet is the title is significant here, because it tells us that when we are silent, we can heal, we can unite, we can come together, and when we come together, we can, of course, transform humanity. Okay, so that's the significance of the title. Next, the significance of the chapter. It resonates with modern issues like wars, environmental crisis, overwork, okay, overburden, and so um, these issues are still prevalent. Okay, wars are there. We saw the environmental crisis that happened this year, a lot of flooding and landslides, and you know a lot of cloud bursts, and so on and so forth. This was just in India. Okay, so we saw that these environmental crises are still existing. Then we know overwork. We don't talk enough about being overburdened. Okay, today people are overburdened with their work. They're constantly working and working and working without any break. So that also leads to exhaustion, and hence we get to discuss these issues through this chapter, through this poem. We get to discuss these issues of wars, still persistent, still prevalent, still existing, environmental crisis, and overwork. Okay, next, why this chapter is a part of the syllabus? Because it encourages students to see silence not as weakness but as strength and wisdom. Okay, now there is this saying in Hindi, uh, एक चुप सौ को हराता है. Okay, so when you know when to be silent, you can win over situations that are unfavorable. So it's not weakness. Through this chapter, we get to know, we are encouraged to understand, to see silence not as weakness, because it's not a weakness. To stay silent is actually an example of great strength and of wisdom, because it's not easy to stay silent. Now, take an example. Somebody said something demeaning to you. Somebody said something you did not like. Okay. Now, can you stay silent, or your first reaction would be to, you know, give them an appropriate answer according to that? Uh, if somebody insults you, will you be able to stay silent? No. Okay. Our first, you can say, reaction would be to respond with appropriate insult, right? That's basic human nature. But if a person has enough wisdom and has conquered his or her senses, that person will actually become silent and will not be faced, will not be, troubled by any insult or anything negative that the person is saying. They may try to see that insult or that, comment as something that they may need to work upon themselves. Okay, so they may take it positively, but they will not respond, they will not react to it. Okay, they may respond, sorry, they may respond, but they will not react to it. So that's a great strength. Okay, to not react and to be able to respond calmly with wisdom, that is actually strength. So silence teaches us, this poem teaches us the significance of this chapter, this poem in your syllabus is to encourage all the students to understand that silence is not weakness. If a person is silent, that person is showing immense courage, immense strength, and immense wisdom. Okay, now next, bridges literature, philosophy, and social responsibility. Okay, so through this poem, we get to see, of course, it's a brilliant example of literature. We also get to understand a different kind of philosophy where is being used as a power to unite people, and social responsibility, where we see that, where we understand that it's our responsibility to create harmony with nature, to create harmony with ourselves and with each other. Okay, so I hope the significance of the title and the chapter are clear to you. Okay, questions arise from significance of of the title, but not of the chapter. But we should still know why we are reading a particular chapter. Okay, why is it there? So I hope these are clear to you. Next, we discuss the themes. The first is universal brotherhood. Okay, he urges everybody to come together. Next, we have peace and non-violence. So he urges people to become silent, to stop moving, and to he urges people to come in harmony, to become peaceful, to create a peaceful environment and stop wars. Okay, he directly talks about wars, green wars. Those are wars with nature. Okay, wars among countries and kingdoms and people. So he talks about non-violence and peace. These are the two. This is the next theme in this poem. Next, we have self reflection. Okay, Neruda urges through this poem to reflect, to introspect, okay, to become silent, to stop all activity for a moment, and to understand yourself. Next, harmony with nature. He urges people to stop and stop hunting, okay, stop destroying the nature, and to create a harmony with nature. And finally, he talks about hope and renewal when he gives the example of earth that appears to be dead during winters, but during the spring, all the plants and all the animals that have hibernated, they come out, and we see earth in a new beautiful life. Okay, that teaches us about hope. That teaches us that silence can be used as a medium for renewal, and it may not necessarily mean inactivity or death. I hope the themes are clear to you and you will be able to elaborate them if asked in your exams. Next, let's discuss the tone, the mood, and the style in which this poem has been written. So, of course, the poem has a calm and reflective and tone, and then it's persuasive and hopeful also. Okay, so when you read the poem, it gives you a sense of calmness. The stanzas and the writing style, it gives you a peace. Okay, you can feel peaceful while reading this poem. Then it is reflective. Okay, it urges you to reflect your thinking, your actions, your ways, your life. Then it is persuasive. Multiple times, Neruda has persuaded people to come together, to become silent. He's given clear instructions to stop talking for a moment, to stay quiet, and he's given instructions to stop all activity for 12 seconds. Okay, and also, this poem tone is then becomes hopeful because he talks about silence as a means of renewal, as a medium of renewal, and not of death. Okay. Next, the mood. mood is meditative and contemplative. It encourages stillness and peace. I hope you can understand this. Next, we have style. It's free verse. Okay. Language is very simple and it's conversational. You can see that the poet is talking to the reader. All right. Philosophical yet accessible. So you have philosophy, but it's not a philosophy that you can't understand. So it's an accessible philosophy. You can understand it very well, very clearly. It has universal appeal and it addresses all of humanity, and it's also timeless. Okay, because the problems that persisted then are still there today. So it is also timeless. The style is also timeless. All right. So I hope the tone, the mood, and the style of writing are clear to you. It's very simple and very sweet poem, and a very peaceful and calming poem. Finally, let's summarize this poem before we discuss the final segment of this video, which is the message that we get through this poem. Now, we have multiple times discussed what the poem is telling us, so we will discuss that in clear points in the final segment. Now, the summary, or it's a kind of a quick recap. The poem is a call for peace, self reflection, and harmony in a restless, conflict ridden world. The poet urges everyone to be silent for 12 seconds, not as an as an act of inactivity, but as a pause for thought. Okay, so not urging people to indulge in inactivity. Instead, he is asking everybody to pause for a while, to take a moment and try to contemplate, to try to understand. Through stillness, humans can realize the futility of aggression, war, and endless pursuits. Okay, so we understand that Neruda is urging people to become still, because then we can understand, we can realize that constantly moving, that aggression, that war is all futile. It's useless. It has no meaning. It's not important. Okay. Silence is presented as a universal language that connects people beyond barriers of race, nationality, and culture. So he requests everybody to stop speaking, no matter what language one speaks. He urges everybody to stop speaking. Now, I do not know Italian. Let's say, but if I try to connect with an Italian who cannot understand my language, we will not be able to communicate. But if we become silent and we try to understand each other through silence, then then we can understand, we can connect. Okay, so we leave all our race, all our nationality and culture behind, and then we try to come at a same level and try to understand each other. Okay, so similarly, silence has been presented as a universal language that can help people connect to each other. Next, and finally, the poem ends with the message that true progress lies in introspection, unity, and living in harmony with nature. So, true progress is not when you're always working. True progress is not when you are, trying to win over something, you're indulging in war and you're harming. No, that's not true progress. True progress is actually when you can introspect, when you can stop, you can pause for a while, think about yourself and think about what you're doing, your actions, and then use that silence to gain wisdom, to achieve unity, to achieve peace, to live, to be able to live in harmony with nature. So that was a quick summary, a quick recap of our poem. Okay. Now we can majorly get interpret three messages from this poem. First one is that true progress lies not in violence and exploitation, but in peace, unity, and reflection. Okay, so we just discussed this, that true progress is not when you're exploiting, when you're creating violence. Instead, it's when you come together in peace, when you unite, and when you reflect on your actions. Next, silence can be a source of strength and renewal, not emptiness. Okay, so that's the next message, that when you're silent, it does not mean you're empty, you're alone. It's not about loneliness. It's about strength and renewal. It's about using that silence as a tool to understand yourself and your surroundings and your people, and then gaining wisdom and creating a world of strength and renewing your thought process. Okay. Finally, humanity must learn to coexist with each other and with nature. Okay. So the last message, the final message that we get from this poem is about uh, humanity creating peace, and living in harmony with each other, with the nature. Okay. So we must learn to coexist in harmony with nature and with each other. So these are the three important messages that we get from this poem, and we have discussed them all in depth throughout the poem. So I hope the poem is clear to you, and you were able to understand what the poem was trying to teach us, what Neruda was trying to teach us and get to us through this poem. It was a very beautiful poem, and a poem that everybody can enjoy and understand and learn from.
And that was keeping quiet, a gentle reminder that silence is not death, but life renewed. Not loneliness, but unity. Not idleness, but an awakening. For exams, remember, this poem is as much about inner peace as it is about global harmony. The key is Neruda's belief that even a single moment of quiet reflection can change how humanity lives together. If this exploration resonated with you, do like, share, and subscribe to the Eloquent Explorers. For detailed notes, PDFs, join our Telegram channel. And for quizzes, daily practice, and quick revision, connect with us on our WhatsApp channels. Links are in the description. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and sometimes keep quiet to truly listen to the world around you.